All right, everybody can see my screen, hopefully. Welcome to our third webinar this year so far on releasing the vital signs report. We are doing it a little bit differently this year. We're releasing it in serial fashion. As soon as we get data, we're pushing it out instead of waiting for everything to be ready before we push out the whole thing in one shot. And today we're talking about sustainability and housing and community development, two extremely important pieces of information with respect to our neighborhoods, particularly as it reflects it in coming into the pandemic and then during the pandemic in 2020. So just a little bit about us, for those that might not know, we are the Baltimore Neighborhood Indicators Alliance, and we've been tracking data for all of Baltimore's neighborhoods for 20 years, back since 2000, so actually a little bit more than 20 years now. And we're part of a learning network from the Neighborhood Indicators Partnership, which is housed at the Urban Institute. And we're learning from 30 other cities to try and bring back best practices here to Baltimore. And you'll see some examples of that as my talk goes through today. So what's the plan for vital signs? Like I mentioned, we normally have a 16-month lag in our data when we compile all of 1 year's data in one shot and then release the whole year. So we are updating the vital signs report to reflect 2019 data, which would be our normal process. But we know we all have questions about what happened in the city of Baltimore in 2020, and so we need to release data now. So we're releasing 2020 data if we have it. So we have 311 data for 2020, we have permit data, vacant, sales, and going to show you what we've found so far with respect to 2020, but not all of the 2020 data is going to be up on our website. And when we can kind of look at other entities that might have more timely data, we will try and put that out for people to see even more timely data than what we have. This is the Urban Institute put out the Rental Assistance Priority Index, and they are looking at a variety of different measures like housing unaffordability, real-time unemployment data, and some other factors to think up who is most likely to need rental assistance that may not have needed rental assistance in the past. So this is a good data set that's being updated on a monthly basis. And you can see the kinds of neighborhoods where there might be stress on the rental market, which may not have been there before. Some of these neighborhoods we might not necessarily think of up here as having kind of high rent stress, but this is where it's estimated where there's a lot of people that have lost their jobs during the pandemic and are also paying rent. So I highly recommend looking at the Urban Institute's Rental Assistance Priority Index if that's something of interest, constantly being updated with data that we don't have. So our job is not just to tell you about what we have, but also to try and get other neighborhood data that might be useful to your work. So like I mentioned, the Vital Signs report, we're trying to put out everything for 2019 and 2020 as we get it. Today, we're going to be talking about two new chapters, sustainability and housing and community development. And for those that have been with us for our Vital Signs releases in the past, we have put out demographics already, we've put out crime and safety, and we've done workforce and economic development. So those, we have 5 chapters out, we have 3 more to go, and hopefully you'll stick with us when we push those out as well. Lots of interesting things for folks to access the Vital Signs report. There's lots of different ways depending on how you want to look at data. For some of you, if you really want to read a narrative report, all of our chapters have a narration that goes with it and interactive maps, and I'll show you how to access them for people that really just want to read something and not look at interactive data. But we have the interactive data too, and that's what we'll talk about when I do the demo of the website. We're so excited. This is the first year that we have live API connection from our OpenData Portal to the city's OpenData Portal. So as we push out data, you're not only going to find it on our OpenData Portal, but you're going to find it on Open Baltimore if that's the route that you go to try and find our information. So we're very excited and grateful to the Baltimore City Department of IT of working with our staff on making sure that this was possible. So today we're going to talk about, even though we were only releasing 2 chapters, these are the indicators that we are releasing, everything around sustainability. And I could go, again, the entire narration goes to each one of these indicators and how things have changed. For this particular webinar, I'm just going to focus on a few things that we're seeing, kind of trends that are problematic leading into the pandemic. One is, of course, is travel time to work that has increased over the last decade. And then a new one for us, which is miles of bike lanes, which is both good news and some gaps where we don't have bike lanes. And then let's talk about cleanliness. One of the things that all of our neighborhoods have had to struggle with even before the pandemic, and then of course during the pandemic. So these are the 3 that I'm going to focus in on this talk. And then of course, when we talk about housing, we have a new indicator this year that we've never released before. So it's hot off the presses, looking at HMDA data on residential mortgages that were either originated or approved by neighborhood. And then we are seeing kind of the hot housing market in terms of how many people are rehabilitating their properties, and a severe reduction in our vacant and abandoned property housing stock, which is great news in some cases for the city of Baltimore. So all of this data is here to try and tell the story of all of our neighborhoods. Let's start off with sustainability and some of the indicators that I mentioned. This is one that we've been tracking for a long time, because in the middle of a city, if you have a long commute time, that's a sign of your neighborhood being isolated physically and in terms of mobility from all of the things that the region has to offer. So we look at this particular indicator, and we are of course seeing kind of high travel times out here on the west side. And in general, the city's high travel time has increased over the last decade. From it used to be 19.6 at the beginning of the decade, and now it's up to 21.7% of all of our workers that are traveling more than 45 minutes. So this is kind of a bad trend overall for the city. And then you can see kind of huge ironies in terms of this idea of the tale of 2 cities. The neighborhood with the highest percentage of people that are traveling 45 minutes is here now, Southern Park Heights. It actually used to be Sandtown Winchester, but now it's Southern Park Heights. And right next to it is the community with the lowest percentage of people traveling 45 minutes commute time. And this kind of juxtaposition in the middle of our city of the low and the high right next to each other is kind of why we have the idea of the tale of 2 Baltimores. And unfortunately, this one indicator shows that kind of disparity in our city. The bike lanes, thanks to the Department of Transportation and thanks to anyone on this particular webinar that has been giving us data, all of our city partners have been fantastic, obviously under extremely difficult conditions to get us information. And this is one that we have last updated in 2012, I believe, or 2013, and now we have it for 2020. And you can see bike lanes, we now have 207.8 miles citywide. But again, lots of neighborhoods that don't have any bike lanes, which could be a factor in thinking about who might want to live in these neighborhoods, because bike lanes tend to be an amenity for some folks that might be looking for housing. Cleanliness, thinking about how can, one of the things that every neighborhood talks about is, trash, especially in the last year when we had issues with trash pickup and lots of things related to solid waste. And then of course, our clogged storm drains. What I'm going to show you is that it was down significantly in 2020 from 2019, but it was actually very high in 2019. So we saw kind of a height in 2019 and then come back down in 2020, largely because there was a lot of not a lot of activity in the public right of way. So some of it could be that we don't know because people weren't calling 311 as much in 2020 as they might have been in 2019, or there truly isn't as much trash because so many establishments were closed and things that you take out wasn't really as big as it was in 2019. So we're not sure why this has happened. We can just see that calls for dirty streets and alleys and clogged storm drains were way down in 2020. So on to housing. Like I said, we are trying to issue 2019 and 2020. These are both new indicators for this round. And you can see what has happened in 2020 is a continuation of huge amounts of investment in terms of rehabilitation of our existing housing stock. And this is a measure to say that people are investing in properties that are older. Most of our housing stock in the city of Baltimore is older. And to see an increase in rehabilitation between 2019 and 2020 during a pandemic is interesting. And then you can see in 2020 where we saw kind of high rates of permits out here in the West, Forest Park, Ashburton, and then the Waverlys. Some of these, and Madison East End, some of these are neighborhoods that we don't typically see a lot of rehabilitation permits, Upton, Druid Heights being another one too. So positive signs of investment in the housing stock. And I think that's obviously related to the fact that we see our lowest vacancy rate in the city since we tracked it over this decade. So that's great news that we've seen the lowest rate of vacant and abandoned housing notices. It in fact was about 800 fewer VHNs, vacant house notices, that's what we call them, in 2020 than in 2019. Still kind of similar areas where we're seeing vacancy, but some dramatic reductions in vacancy. In particular, Old Town Middle East has seen about a 28% decline in vacancy just in the last decade. Lots of activity going on there, obviously. Upton, Druid Heights has seen about a 10% decline in vacancy, which is all good news. And then overall, we've seen this reduction. And so rehabilitation of the housing stock and reduction of the vacancy are coupled and correlated, obviously. And then, this is exciting for us when we release a new indicator. We have like little cheer. We've been thinking about doing this for a long time. So for those that are not familiar, it's the Home Mortgage Disclosure Act, which mortgage lending institutions are supposed to report how many people asked or applied for a mortgage, and then what were the results of that application. How many people were the mortgage, approved and the people picked up the mortgage so it was originated, or that they were approved and they chose not to then go along and originate that mortgage. And then the converse is that they were denied a mortgage. So to get to 100% here, you were either had a mortgage and you originated the mortgage, you were approved for a mortgage, but you chose not to accept it, or you were denied. And so this particular indicator is for those that were applicants that were originated or approved. And you can unfortunately see a pretty classic pattern in the city of Baltimore, where the vast majority of approvals, or high approval rates, I should say, are occurring in kind of some of our traditionally non-minority neighborhoods. Dr. Lawrence Brown calls this literally the white L of the city, and that's where we're seeing high mortgage approvals, and unfortunately very low mortgage approvals in areas that had that high vacancy rate. Some outliers there, Greater Mondawmin is seeing kind of high rates of mortgage approval, which is good news. And then a lot of areas here in the Northeast see kind of good rates of mortgage approval. Okay, so we are going to do a demo of the website. And before I do that, I just want to let you know about what's coming up, because we do have a lot of things coming up. We're going to release the last three chapters: health, which obviously requires us to coordinate with our own health department, and they are very busy. Arts and culture, and education. So those three we're pulling together as we speak. And then we are going to have Baltimore Data Week. And you can kind of raise your hand and see if you've been to Baltimore Data Week. It will be virtual again this year. It was virtual for the first time last year, and it has pros and cons. We all like to be in person, but having a virtual event is better than having no event. And it actually enabled kind of national level folks to join us during the week. So that's a plus. And that will be July 19th to the 23rd. And leading up to Baltimore Data Week, what we generally have is what's called a brainstorming session in the latter part of May, once we finish all of our Vital Signs Wednesdays, to figure out what do you want to learn from, what do you want to hear about, what topics should we cover during Baltimore Data Week. So if you're not on our mailing list already, but hopefully you all are, because that's why you're here, please join us for any one of these upcoming sessions. And for now, I'm going to give a quick demo of our website. And my staff can tell me if there has been any questions that I can answer before I jump into that. And you can see our little poll. Thanks so much to everybody for being here. All right, so our website. There is a lot to see on our website. Hopefully, for some of you, this is a refresher, but I'm going to go through a couple of things that I think might be of interest. So when you come to our website, the main ways that you're going to access the Vital Signs report are by community. You can certainly come in here, and if you know what community you're interested in getting all data for just that one community, you can certainly click on any one of these areas and get that data. The other way to get it is the next tab over, which is by topic. And like I mentioned, today we've updated housing and sustainability. And then the last way is by indicator. So if you know the name of an indicator, like vacant and abandoned housing, you can type that in, and then you can go ahead and go directly to an indicator. Those are our typical ways to get to data. There's other ways to get to data, and we've done a bunch of different webinars on how to get it on these three. So I'm going to focus on something a little bit different this time. So the other way to get to it, all of our data sets, is through the map gallery. And I am going to click on the map gallery. And I want to focus in on this because there's so many amazing resources here. Again, if you're looking for the visual representation of our data, if you're writing a report or putting together a presentation or writing a grant, a lot of this will be useful to you to tell your story. So all of our maps are available here in the map gallery. And if you were to click on housing and community development, I have it preloaded just in case our website is slow. You can click on housing development and you will get to all of our maps that Cheryl Knott is famous for producing for every year. So this is 2019 and 2020 in the cases where we have both. And then you can go all the way back to 2012 if you want, if you were so inclined. And all of these maps are downloadable. And for example, our newest map, which is residential mortgages originated and approved, you can always click on it and download it and use it for your own presentation. So that's all in the map gallery. There's lots of other things in the map gallery, like interactive statistical maps for you to use, reference maps if you're wondering which neighborhood comes into which community, because our communities are a little bit larger than what people consider to be neighborhoods. You can always come in here, and there is an interactive map that shows you how CSAs, community statistical areas, are related to neighborhoods, which are related to zip codes, which are related to census tracts. So different ways for you to kind of think about geography in the city of Baltimore. So that is one way to get to our data. And the other way is, of course, to look for the full report. If you click here on Vital Signs and go into the full report, we have all of our story maps, and the two new ones are sustainability and housing. And I'm going to click on, if I were to click on sustainability, I think I'm going straight here. This one? Yep. This is the one I preloaded. So again, a story map is a way for you to read about a particular topic, what was important in the city this year. And again, goes all the way back to 2010, if you want to go back to the archives for Vital Signs, goes into the sources, and then you have interactive maps on some of our indicators that you can click on and see trends over time. So a way to kind of both read as well as have an interactive way of looking at data over time. That's sustainability. I think what the one that I did want to show you within sustainability is a pretty awesome map, thanks to Logan Schertz, who's our research assistant, put together this one about our new one, which is about bike lanes and bike miles. And you can see where the bike lanes are, of how they were calculated, whether it's a path or a side path, and kind of dig into the indicator underneath all of these bike lanes. So hopefully that's exciting to everybody that's interested in interactive websites and bike lanes in particular. And if you were to click on housing and community development right from here, you can see all of our chapters right here from the header. If you were to click on housing and community development, you would get the other story map that we're releasing today. And again, a way to think about what has happened in the city of Baltimore through this narrative. And here I want to, you can kind of come back down here and look at different aspects of the chapter, if you want to jump down straight to permits, or if you want to jump down straight into the housing market. This is our new data set. You get more information about what the Home Mortgage Disclosure Act is, and then again, looking at that map that I showed you in a static form, but here it's in an interactive form. And so you can click on, for example, Greater Mondawmin, and see that 88.9% of all applicants were approved or originated for a mortgage in 2019. The last thing I want to show you, which is probably the most fun, another way to get to our data is through our OpenData Portal. So that, if you click here back on the home page, click on Vital Signs and click on the Vital Signs OpenData Portal, I'm going to take us there automatically. This is our OpenData Portal, which again, Cheryl has been both making better every year, but it's been about 2 or 3 years that it's been here. And now this is the first year that our OpenData Portal is again connected to the city's OpenData Portal. And you can do a bunch of different things here. Again, the same icons that were on our main page are here on our OpenData Portal. So if you just want to look at all of our housing and community development data, or all of our sustainability data, or if you wanted to do a keyword search, if I can spell mortgage, you would see our brand new residential mortgage here. And if I were to click on that, you would get this particular page. So this is the same data, just a different way to look at it. And when you come into the OpenData Portal and look at any one of our indicators, if you click on, let me unclick that for a second. If you click on the year that you're interested in, what you'll get is a histogram that basically tells you how many communities are in that particular bin. So for example, again, this is brand new data for all of us. You can see that there was only one community where only 65 to 70% of the mortgages were originated or approved. And then we kind of have this little bit of a bell curve where there's a lot that were in this 85 to 90% range, which was the citywide average. And then we have a few that are out here at, 95 to 100% of all applicants were originated or approved. And so this kind of gets to, again, the different experiences that we have as a city. So if you wanted to know which neighborhoods were down here between 65 and 80%, the way to find that out is going into the layers. You can get it just for the city of Baltimore, or you can get it for all of our neighborhoods. And I'm going to go into all of our neighborhoods, or communities, I should say. Oops, I'm going to click on it here and then go into the data piece itself. And if you click on 2019, you can filter the data. You'll get this, if you click on this little, what is it, flashlight looking shape, you can click on 2019 and then look at different data sets. So if I said 67 to 80%, I want to know those communities that were below the citywide average based on what I saw in that histogram. And if you click on that, what will happen is that the data gets filtered. Now I only am looking at 10 different records, and the communities that fall into that come in there as well. So you can see the neighborhoods that have the lowest rates of mortgage approval in the city. And they are unfortunately kind of east, West Baltimore, and headed up into Park Heights. You can always download the data. You can download the full data set, or you can download what I just filtered, which is just the 10. And then for those of you that are developers, there's always the API services, which you can link to directly, which is what the city of Baltimore has done in order for all of our data sets to be the same. All right, I think I'm going to stop for the recording there, and then happy to answer any questions that anybody